Good morning, Emma.
Hey, Philippa.
How are you?
No, very well. This is great.
Good, good. Well, thanks for joining me this morning.
Yeah, it's great. Can you see and hear me? Fine.
Absolutely, I can. And can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm just such a fan of CodeSpace and what you're doing. And so, yeah, it's just really great to be able to finally do this live chat with you.
I
Uh,
know. I feel like I've just been such a fan of your work for so long. So this is feels so overdue.
Well, let me just tell some of the people that are joining us this morning for our chat. Thank you. What about you a little bit, because I can really just like to brag a little bit about what it is you do. So Emma Dix is the director at CodeSpace, which is an education institution that specializes in teaching coding and software development. It has received global acclaim for its initiatives that foster diversity in the tech world. And one of the things that I enjoy about being on your site is just how many women and girls that I see that actually come through your space learning about tech. And so what we're doing this month is we're really talking about the value of women in the workplace. And so I thought it was well overdue to be talking to somebody like yourself in the tech space just about women in tech and the value of women in tech, and the rise of women in tech. So Emma, kind of the perception is that, and I know from a recruiting space, that there are not a lot of women that seek out careers in tech. And so I'd love to hear your perception on it, and are the times shifting, or what are you seeing? And if they are avoiding it, why?
Yeah. I mean, this is such a tricky question, and I certainly can't profess to have a simple answer to it because historically we've seen, and I mean even currently, the vast majority of developers are men. And this is really what drove me to start CodeSpace and start saying, how do we, if we consider that if we want someone to go into tech, you're going to have to learn how to code. So can we make an education institution that feels more accessible to women? So one of the sort of hypotheses that I have, one of the reasons that perhaps we're not seeing women is that largely developers are self-taught. And I think spaces, communities, and subcultures, things like gaming and so on, which are, there's a lot of guys in those spaces, or maybe to say there's few girls in those spaces, and those are maybe the sort of gateways into becoming a developer.
Mm.
And yet that's not necessary. So really what I wanted to do was say, okay, cool, well, can we start an education institution that is welcoming to a broader group of people, that can then be a gateway into the tech industry.
I
Um,
love that. I think, yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. So I have a son and I have a daughter as a mom, and my son naturally leans in towards the gaming and the tech, just wanting to be gaming and everything else. My daughter less so, yet she's doing IT at school, and she's only one of four girls doing IT. The rest are all
yeah,
boys,
yeah.
and she's thriving in it. And I'm just kind of like, is it just because boys, and this is a big generalization, I do understand, but it seems to be that largely boys tend towards the gaming when they're younger and that draws them in, or is there more to it?
Yeah, I mean, really, I think for me, I couldn't see much reason why. So yes, gaming is one gateway in, but can we just make another gateway? You don't need to be a gamer to learn how to code. So yeah, that kind of there ends my my argument. So yeah, I
Great.
don't think we need to anymore say, okay, well, you must be in that community. Sure, it's one way that you get used to kind of interacting in online communities where you might be able to, you know, to learn how to be a self-taught developer. But there's other pathways, and there's really no ground for why girls can't be brilliant programmers.
I agree with you. So just on that note, what value do women add to the working world of tech, and why do you think they should consider a career in tech?
Um, so, I mean, on the value part, I'd be really interested if there's anyone who wants to fight me on, or fight us on why women add value. So maybe like not to
Full
harp
stop.
too much on that. I feel like we're preaching to the choir. But I think what is interesting is to say why, perhaps there's women out there thinking, why should I consider tech? And maybe that's an interesting discussion. So, I mean, first of all, let's just gun in, for the real things, is tech pays really well. And that's a pretty good reason to go into an industry. So the second reason is that what I find really interesting about the tech industry is that long before, COVID and the pandemic, it's been an industry that's been remote first, and has really fostered a culture of remote and flexible working. It's very outcomes driven. It's not a bums and seats kind of industry. So for many women, this is a fantastic space to be in. So at the moment, I was looking at the stats. So 92% of developers in South Africa have the option to work from home, and 1 in 2, so 51%, it's remote first, which, for many women, that's a huge opportunity. One's not the minority. It's actually, you've got a 1 in 2 shot of that being the case.
Absolutely.
So
and we know that that's a highly sought after benefit for so many women, but particularly women with children.
Yeah, and interestingly, so these stats are coming from a report that I really like, Offizin's State of the Developer Nation report that they release every year. Really like it. And in that report, when they sort of do a broad poll of the tech industry, and the retention factors, the reasons that developers give for staying in their current role as opposed to seeking a new role are company culture, work-life balance, and growth. And those are really work-life balance is, I think, by far the strongest reason. And so the whole tech industry, there's this pressure from the people in it to create a space that is good for everyone, but good for women, being able to create that balance.
I love that. I think that's really great to hear and really encouraging for women. So what we see is that there's often stages in a woman's career journey, and we talk about seasons that women go through. And one of them is when they have been out of the workplace for a while and then they're wanting to return and they're reconsidering a new career path. So they may have studied something, they may have had a career break, or they're tired of where they are in current corporate, and so they're looking to move and looking to do something more flexibly. So is CodeSpace the kind of space where women could sign up and do some of your courses so that they could pivot into a different career path?
Absolutely. So our learning journey essentially takes someone from having no knowledge of coding, no love of gaming required, no ability to fix the Wi-Fi network. So take one from that space to, in a 400-hour track, obviously there's some flexibility, to being a proficient software developer and being able to then apply for a role as a software developer. And this learning path is equally applicable to someone. We would either define someone as a career starter, so that's someone with no professional training or skill experience, and that's looking to start a career. So first career as a software developer. And that has equal benefit as to someone who would then be a career changer. So we would define a career changer as someone who has existing professional experience or professional skills that one then wants to augment by adding the ability to code. And I think that's a really interesting discussion to be having with a Recruit My Mom audience. And so there, what one, one would be looking at saying, okay, well, what existing skills do I already have? So, whether that's the sort of management skills, whether that's existing, it could be something like even, very adjacent industry like graphic design. That's a great example of how one can add in software development and shift into a more technical version of that role. And so looking at what existing skills does one have, and then how can one add coding to augment that skill. And then I would say, really what the next question should be is, what kind of work environment is one as an individual looking for? And I think in that career changer stage, one has quite a lot of awareness as to what kind of work environment is going to work for you. And being able to say, okay, well, what type of company, what company size, what location, what, remote first, hybrid, one's able to make an assessment and scan the job market and look for potential matches. And, saying, okay, well, so the kind of skills that perhaps would take a very long time to develop might be the ones that one's bringing from one's previous experience. And then adding in the technical component and perhaps then filling a couple of gaps
yes.
to then be able to shift into a different role.
Yeah, and I think what's so important is that what we're seeing through Recruit My Mom over the years, and now particularly through the COVID years, is this rapid shift towards digital skills and the demand for digital skills.
Yes.
And so if one can just add one or two extra tools into one's toolbox, you become very relevant to a market that is seeking these skills. And that's why I get so excited about CodeSpace and what you do, because I just see how it's helping, so many, and of course our economy, because we've got such demand for these types of skills. Emma, if you were looking to start your career and enter a tech career space, as a woman, do just let's talk to the younger women who are starting out their careers, and possibly older, but let's just start with the younger ones. Do you need to go off and do a degree, or can one do a CodeSpace type academy and then build several tools into that toolbox and use that to create what you've called an augmented career of different skill sets?
Yeah. So from the point of view of, is it necessary to get a job? No, you absolutely wouldn't need a degree to land a job as a developer. So, and this is what makes me so excited about this space, is that companies will hire someone as a developer based on their portfolio, so their ability to exhibit skills. So, and then fascinatingly, a qualification, a formal university qualification, has less influence than years of experience on someone's earnings. So basically, someone who has started working earlier will end up earning more over time than someone who has spent 3 years gaining a university degree, which doesn't happen often. So, practically the high earning jobs, like if you want to be a pilot, if you want to be a legal professional, you simply are bound, a medical professional, you have to go get a formal qualification. It's not optional. Whereas here, there's actually, over time, someone who starts gaining practical experience will earn higher over time, which is a huge opportunity. Of course, there's always the case for, a university degree isn't just about your future earnings. There is the whole experience and so on, and one can never discount that. So that's a personal choice that remains there. But I think what's also quite an interesting approach is, as the world of work is changing and people are seeing things become far less linear. So it's not like school, tertiary, work, never learn again. I think taking a more cyclical approach to learning and saying, okay, well, when one finishes school, one can, train for maybe half a year, gain a job, start earning, and then over time continue studying, and possibly complete a university degree if that's something that is important to one. So I think that sort of more cyclical learning and earning approach is going to be something that we see far more young people taking up, and makes complete sense from an economics point of view, from a
Yes.
ability to really make the most of a degree.
I think that's great. And Emma, so just in terms of the investment that somebody needs to make in this, is you've got a number of courses, you've got a number of skills that you offer through your academy. Which ones tend to be the most sought after currently in this current job market?
Right. So our core learning track is a full stack software development qualification. So essentially the options are that someone can slice that up. So for instance, one can do the first half of that software development track, and that would be front end. If one is already qualified as a front end developer and wants to add knowledge of back end, one can then do the second half, and then one would be qualified as a full stack developer. Or one simply does all of it. And then there's sort of electives or specializations. One can add in mobile, one can add in cloud, knowledge of cloud engineering, and so on. But essentially there's that full stack software development. And really what we encourage people is, even if one comes in saying, actually, I want to be a front-end developer, gaining knowledge of full stack software development, I would say, if one can, would be worth the investment, because then one knows one can have some knowledge of the topic, even if one decides to specialize. So when one hits the workplace, one can come in and have just more options as to how to specialize.
Fantastic. And do you still come up against a gender bias in this industry from employers, or is that changing? Are people really looking out for both male and female?
Right. So, I mean, there's a constant cry from industry. We can't find female developers. And yet, at the same time, we are still seeing that so women are earning less. But interestingly, this gap is really most pronounced at the 10 years of experience mark. And for me, that really just speaks to not specific to the tech industry, but just that's when women are likely to be having children, and that the workplace is. And that's where women are taking a knock. So, if anything, at that point, that's a broader topic that I would say is outside of a niche industry. That's simply the workplace, and perhaps, if anything, with a very in-demand skill, and in an industry where remote first and outcomes driven employment that's the nature of being a developer. Perhaps that there's more room to be having these conversations and avoiding that sort of childbearing punishment.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's that's what we talk about so often, is what we call the gender leak, which takes place at the child-rearing years. And that's why we've been such a proponent of work-life balance, flexible ways of working, outcomes-based works, is keep and retain these skills in market through the season of having children. And I think employers had a really, really proper education around flexible ways of working through COVID, and we're forever grateful. I mean, there's not much that's positive about COVID, but for one thing, we're very grateful for that. And there's a comment here from Katie that says, this could be a great resource for micro credentialing. There's this new, I mean, we've been talking about it to employers, is don't just look at the hard college and university degrees. Have a look at what we're calling micro credentialing. What other skills are people layering into their skills that they might bring to bear in an organization? And I think it's a shift that we're seeing in the way that people are upskilling themselves, and that employers also need to recognize that.
Yeah,
And it's an exciting time.
absolutely. And I mean, here there's the sort of practicality of saying, okay, well, if one is a candidate, someone who has existing experience that might be outside of the kind of the tech industry, and then adds in hard software development skills. So on one front, one's going to present those hard skills that one has. That's through one's portfolio of code projects. But then, in order to then not only be remunerated for one's level of experience as a developer, but also for those additional skills that one's bringing, I think that's when one needs to then be very clever about saying, how am I going to represent the existing experience and skills that I have, and how do I match those to what the employer is looking for? And there I would say that's where one wants to have done a scan of the job market, identified some roles and companies that one might be applying to, and then really craft one's profile to match that, and be saying, okay, well, in this role, this is what I was required to demonstrate. These are the skills that I did demonstrate in that, and this is how they would transfer. Because the tech industry, there's so many of these roles that are new, and there's a lot of these fancy names that within the tech industry, and I would sort of really encourage everyone to sprinkle a lot of salt, and beyond the name of the particular role, go in and look at what skills is this requiring, and chances are you're a lot more qualified than maybe the name sounds for in the tech industry. That does love.
That's good. Yeah, I think that's really good, and that's often what we refer to as transferable skills. Just what can you transfer, and how do you highlight that to employers to make sure that they see you. So Narisha asks, what is your suggestion for a stay-at-home mom who wants to join this workforce in terms of gaining tech knowledge or experience? So just, I know we're almost out of time, Emma, but I'd love you to just respond to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, if one, so I get, here, let me speak to say, if one wants to say, okay, one does want to gain software development knowledge. So, for instance, here, this is where our estimate is the sort of the best amount of time to spend is that 400 hours of studying, gaining that good knowledge of full stack software development. And essentially what one's wanting to do is develop a portfolio that one can go and present to a potential employer. And here, sort of speaking quite practically about what is it that one would want to be learning, and global job market, I would say an easy choice is JavaScript. So that's the most used language across front end, back end overall. That's a really well-used language. Frameworks one would want to be looking at, React, Angular, Node.js, doesn't matter if that sounds foreign. Those will all come as a natural progression of what one's learning. And yeah, so essentially how we've structured our study paths is either sort of saying, okay, one's going to study part-time, so dedicating about 10 hours a week, or sort of 20 hours a week and moving through that faster, and that's really dependent on each individual and the timing they would want to dedicate there. I suppose an idea that I had, which is maybe adjacent to your question, Narisha, and I'm going to veer off a little bit, is when I was thinking about, this concept of remote work. For some women, that is fantastic, the option to work from home. For other women, working from home is not a fantastic option. And
Sure.
here I wanted to sort of think about the idea of, well, there's it's not just home or office, but there can be these third spaces that are, perhaps outside of home, but not yet moving all the way to one's employer's office, but these other workspaces. So even saying, okay, well, actually, I do, leave home for certain hours and go, to a co-working space or something like that. That's proximate to school and home and all of, other whatever one needs in life. So not necessarily just flipping back to, well, if home doesn't work for me, then it must be the office.
We're definitely seeing that shift in terms of hybrid ways of working. For some it works really well and for others not. And then there's this in between. And it really does come down to choice, I think, and the way that people like to work. And that's also another great thing at the moment is that we're seeing employers, some not, but quite a lot, that are giving employees a choice as to how they want to work and how best, provided there's output. And I think all the while employers focus on output and not necessarily presence, they're on a bit of a winning streak, and it's win-win for both. So
and they're going to be employers smile at the end because they'll retain talent. Everyone
absolutely.
I saw such a great, I need to go and find it. Just a sort of quite flippant post on LinkedIn, but I was like, there's truth there. Someone was like, I'm a hiring manager and I'm just following companies who are putting a full-time back to office requirement, and I'm just hiring all their engineers.
Exactly.
They're like, it's my best talent acquisition strategy. So
actually, I should write. That sounds like a really great article to write. A good talent acquisition strategy to follow companies or forcing them. Emma, it's been a delight chatting to you this morning on Instagram Live, and I want to thank everybody who joined us this morning for the discussion. Please do go to CodeSpace, their website, CodeSpace ZA, and have a look at what Emma and her team are offering in terms of courses and all the other wonderful things that they do. And Emma, just thank you very much for your time. I don't know if you've got any closing comments or anything you want to say to people who've been joining us today.
Really, first of all, thank you, Philippus. This has been such a joy. I can't say you've been not a household name, an office name for so long. So this is really just lovely. And I think the what Recruit My Mom is doing is perfectly intertwines with what we're doing. Basically, trying to say, okay, well, how do we make this exciting world of work? How do we get women in there and making the big decisions around the tech that we use every day? We really encourage anyone listening who's interested, reach out to our admissions team. We'd love to help you, look at what skills you have, what we offer, and if we can't help you, pointing you to resources that might be helpful to you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Emma. Really appreciate it. And thank you for your time and your insights. I'm sure you and I'll be chatting again. I'm a big proponent of getting more women into tech. I really think it's the way to go for women. We'll keep in touch. But have a beautiful day. And guys, have an awesome morning to you. And thank you again, Emma, for your time this morning.
No, thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Emma. Bye-bye.
Bye.